Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today we're going to do a real-world test between this Stihl 500i and the 661. And I've actually done this test before, but the way I set it up wasn't a really fair way to compare these two saws. I actually had these two and a 461, and I think those are three of the most popular saws out there for people who actually are running saws every day. But the test I did on them was cutting a very small log, and that only measures speed and not torque. And the 500 cut faster than the 661 on that small log. And I'm confident that that's not an accurate assessment of these two saws. So now we've got this log here that's like 40 inches, and we're gonna cut it. And I think we'll get a different result. So I've got two brand new chains so we can do a controlled test. We'll get those put on and get to cutting. I've done a lot of these time tests and everyone wants to talk about the chain being used. So some of the comments will tell me I'd cut faster if I'd file the rakers down or different things like that. I'm not trying to see how fast I can cut. What I'm trying to do is set up a scenario where neither saw has an advantage because we're doing it exactly the same way. So we have two identical brand new chains here. They are 3/8 and 0.63 width. They are the yellow chain. I prefer the yellow that cuts more aggressive but has more chance of a kickback. And that's what we're gonna run on both of these. Another comment I get a lot is, why don't you use a Husky? Well, these are high dollar saws. I don't have just a big stack of them laying around. Matter of fact, I'm doing this today because the 661 has to go back to the guy that owns it. This isn't even my saw. I just run the 500. But I borrowed this with the chainsaw mill. And both of these saws were originally bought for milling. So if someone within an hour or two drive from me has some nice Husky saws, I would absolutely make the drive down there to do a little comparison. From watching videos and reading on forums from people who have ran both, a lot of people say the Huskies can be sometimes a more powerful saw, but I think where Stihl wins is they make a lighter saw with the same power or similar power. The other comment I get a lot is that that's nothing, my old 044 or 036 or 066 or whatever your older saw is will outcut these new ones. And I've watched some videos on that too. I don't believe that's true. Now, I will say there's a chance that your old saw that you've been running for 20 years wins because of that. Because it's still running 20 years later. And I don't know if the new computer chip saws like these will still be running that well 20 years from now. I'm pretty sure it was Mike from Outdoors with the Morgans who had a saw he'd been running for 20 plus years. And it was one of those models that starts with the 0 that everyone's still so fond of. And he loved that saw because it'd been so reliable for so long. And that's an impressive thing. But then he compared it to a new saw with the same CC rating, and the new saw cut faster. And you would expect it to, because the other one might, you know, it's old, it's lost a little bit maybe of its juice, but that's just that conversation that's gonna happen in the comments, so we might as well have it here. Now we got the chain on the 661. Had to get bar oil and fuel in both saws. And then I've got one other issue with trying to do a fair comparison between these two saws on this log, and that's the length of the bar. So take a look at that in just a second. I hate these safety cans. So obviously this 25-inch bar is not just cutting all the way through it. And if I walk around the log to make the cut from the other side, that introduces a variable or makes it harder to compare. So I'm thinking that if I cut down through it from the top here, run down through, I'll be able to get right at the edge of that, huh? and then come down it to there. We'll see if I can make the whole cut in one cut or not. And that's the reason I have a second way I want to measure this, just in case I have a hard time getting cut all the way through. The fact this is not a straight cut introduces a variable of the way I handle the saw. I'm going to try to do it the same way both times. That's why I normally do these cut tests with a small log. The problem with a small log and a big saw is that they don't require you to use up all the torque that the saw has. So it doesn't work very well to measure a big saw. This is the 661. I always start the saw, rev it a couple times, then let it warm up for a full minute before I do a cut test. That was 54 seconds, and there was one sliver across the bottom of this that my bar wouldn't reach. And it's going to be the exact same thing with the other saw. It's going to just not quite reach that bottom corner, and that's all right. I don't think it's throwing off the test. I might have thrown the test off a little bit because I think I could have pushed harder on that saw. With the 500, if you push it, I think it'll bog down a little bit. And I let the saw just pull itself in. And I think in general, as people tell me, like, you know, if you dig your dogs in there and push, it'll cut faster. Well, I think it's pretty good just to let the saw work, you know. But neither one of these saws has dogs on them because they were both removed for milling. I can put the dogs back on my 500, but I don't have them for this other saw. So we're doing it exactly the same. When I do that second test, I'm gonna push down harder on the 661, see how much difference it makes. I timed this as I go, and I got 53 seconds with the 661 and 51 seconds with the 500i. It didn't feel like it necessarily, but it seems like the 500 cut faster on this. And I think the big variable is the amount of time I spend bringing it back this way before switching and coming this way. So now we're going to bury the entire length of the bar into this log and cut straight down. and see how long it takes to make that cut. That might be a better test. 661's gonna go first. All right, so I've ran that test twice. First time, the 500 cut a little faster on a small log. Looks like it cut a little faster on this log. On the big one, I don't know if I controlled all the variables. Now, what I learned on this second test is that it's not a smart thing to do. So having that buried right up against it was causing the shavings, and their long shavings, to suck back in around the chain sprocket and actually stop the saw, which is hard to do with these. And if that's not a natural cut you're going to be making, ripping down it like that, unless you're going to split a log in half. So my take is don't do it like that. If you're ever needing to cut like that, pull the saw out and let that chip circulate and get dumped out properly. But the real big takeaway is that those two saws feel about the same to me as far as actual practical power for working. I don't think you're going to notice a huge difference between them, but the 500i weighs like 3 pounds less, and if you're going to be carrying it around, that's a lot. So for my money on two saws that are priced within the same ballpark, I would buy the 500i. And when I turned the camera on, I thought, I know what the result of this is going to be. It's going to be the 661. The other caveat is, it's possible that that exact 661 needs a tune-up or something. You know, these are both used saws. I think we've each had these saws for maybe 2 years. So they're about the same age. So maybe his saw has got more hours on it, needs a tune-up or something. But if I was buying a saw today, out of the entire saw market, for what I'm doing, I would still buy the 500i. I love that saw. The only other difference between them, the 500i has the bark box on it. Now people tell me, online, people tell me the bark box doesn't make any difference. But that's the only other explanation for why the 500 can match the 661. Anyway, I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.